Today I'm going to show you how to make keto Italian rainbow cookies. They're kind of like a spin on the classic Italian rainbow cookies. Keto friendly, really good around the holidays, or just anytime that you want to have cookies. Okay, so there's a couple steps to make these. What I used was my shortbread cookie recipe, and then I kind of mixed it into 3 bowls and added the 3 colors, and then made the layers and you know how you typically make the Italian rainbow cookies. So I'm gonna start off with, this is my dry mixture here, and I just made this ahead of time because I plan on making this another day and I didn't end up having time. Oh my gosh. Hold on a second. Sorry, that was Sophie. She's having a little bit of dementia. And she likes to scream all the time, even though she was just fed 5 seconds ago. Anybody with older cats, you know what I'm talking about. So, anyway, just ignore that. So, I have pre-mixed here ready. This is 2.5 cups of almond flour, and then 1/2 cup of coconut flour, 2/3 a cup of Swerve confectioner's sweetener. So I found that the confectioner's gives it a nicer consistency than the granular. And then I have 2 teaspoons of baking powder mixed in there. So you just kind of mix it all together. And I'll list everything, you know, on my blog and down below in the description box, just so that you can see everything that I used. So then what you're gonna add to this, I'll just grab a knife. So you're gonna need 12 tablespoons of unsalted butter at room temperature, and then you wanna cut this into your dry mixture, just kind of like what you would do with shortbread cookies. So I'm gonna do that now. So by cut, I just mean like, you can cut it with the knife into small pieces, into like chunks. It doesn't have to be, you know, perfect or anything. And then I'm gonna take my other butter here. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. She's just like nuts right now if you hear that meowing. Okay, so we're cutting this butter in. And then of course on top of it I have a beagle, and she's like wandering around the kitchen with her feet tapping on the floor, so you might be hearing a bit of that. So a busy house right now. So we're cutting in this butter. I don't know, I guess I like to do like smaller pieces because eventually when you mix it all together and break it up, it's just easier. Oh my gosh, Sophie. She's so loud. Okay. So I got my butter in there, and then before I mix it all together, I'm gonna add 1/2 teaspoons of almond extract. I just kind of eyeball it. But the almond extract I found was really helpful in giving it that like Italian rainbow cookie flavor, because usually you use like almond paste, and obviously it's not keto friendly, so the almond extract just really helps get that flavor. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of work it all together with my hands and get that butter in there. Some people use like a food processor to do this. I don't have one that is big enough, so I just like doing this instead. It takes a little more work, but it still gets everything done how you need it. So the thing about my cats, Sophie she's really old. She's probably at least 17 years old. But she used to have a brother cat named Simon. Unfortunately, he passed a couple years ago. And then when he passed, she just like wouldn't stop meowing, like she was inconsolable. So we got another cat, Oliver. He's like a striped tabby type cat. And he ended up being huge. He's gotta be like part bobcat or something. So she will pick on him and then he will start beating her up. So they'll be fighting like throughout the day. It's just like crazy. But you know what? It stopped her from meowing all night. Except now that she's just old, so she's kind of got, like at night she goes nuts. She's like, I don't know, whatever the cat version of sundowning is, I'm not really sure. That's just my assumption, I don't know. It just seems like it though. So this is coming together. I'm gonna work this for a couple more minutes until it becomes like a dough. Okay, so I worked it into a dough and I separated it into 3 bowls. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna mix in the colors. So one, I'm gonna keep just the plain dough color. The next one is gonna be green, so I just added like food coloring. And I'm gonna use gloves because it can stain your hands. So you're just gonna kind of work the food coloring into the dough. Just until it's like pretty even. And I'm sure you could do like other colors if you wanted to, if it was like a different holiday. I'm trying to think what holiday is coming up. I guess like Valentine's Day is coming up next, so maybe I could have done like those kind of colors, like red and purple or something. You're just kind of gonna work that through until the color is pretty even. Get a pretty good hand workout with this. Not sure if people normally will do this part with the food processor as well. I don't know, I feel like just kneading it is what helps get that color nice and even. And of course some pieces are breaking off. But you just stick them back on. Okay, so I have my green. It's pretty well mixed. So put that one aside, and then you would just do the same thing with the red until it's like pretty evenly mixed. Okay, so what you're gonna do now is you're gonna roll out each of your layers. And what I found was helpful is I have like this non-stick cookie baking thing. It's like silicone, I think. I put that on the countertop and then I take a piece of parchment paper and put that on top of that. It just kind of helps to stop everything from sliding as I'm rolling it out. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna roll out each color into like kind of a rectangular shape. That's gonna be each of your layers. So we'll start with the red. I can squish it to start, and then you'll take another piece of parchment paper and that goes on top just to help it from sticking to your rolling pin, and then you're gonna just roll that you kind of got to work with it. It's gonna move, it's gonna, you know, break up a little bit. It's not gonna roll as good as your traditional Italian rainbow cookie dough, but you'll see. If you work with it, you'll be able to get it. And you don't want it too thin. I had made these before and they were way too thin, and I feel like it was like not the right texture for a rainbow cookie. So I guess try to make it like ½ inch thick if you can do that. So I'm gonna work on this now and just try to flatten it out. Okay, so that's probably about the thickness that you want. It's about ½ inch. So then I'm gonna do the same thing with my green and with my white. Okay, so once you have your layers rolled out, then you're going to place them on a baking sheet with the parchment paper, and then you'll pop them in the oven, preheated at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And I bake each layer for about 5 minutes, just because you don't want it like overdone and crispy. But I feel like 5 minutes gives it, you know, so it's baked enough. So I'm gonna pop that in now. This will be my red. Okay. So I'm taking my layers out of the oven as they're finishing baking, and this one, you know, it feels soft, but it's definitely baked. So then what you're gonna do is you're gonna let them cool completely, and then we'll start stacking our cookies. All right, so while the cookies are cooling, I'm gonna take a minute to talk about your different options for the jam layer. So I've had Italian rainbow cookies that have had like an apricot layer, and I've liked that a lot, but I just found it easiest to find some kind of raspberry jam to use. So this is just like your grocery store brand. I think this one's Smucker's. I don't know if you can see that, if it's even focusing. Okay, so Smucker's, I mean, it tastes all right. It definitely has like some, like the taste that, you know, it's not like your sugar jam. So basically this has 5 total carbs in 1 tablespoon. So it does have carbs in it. I know they make one that has added fiber. I'm not sure if that has like less carbs because of the fiber. I'd have to look at that one. But basically this one is an option because it does not have sugar. So what it has in place of sugar is sucralose, which is Splenda. So Splenda is not going to kick you out of ketosis from what I've experienced personally. But it's not really natural, and I know some people feel that it will make you crave sugar or sweet things when you do have it, as opposed to like stevia, which doesn't really have that effect. So this is an option. It's not my favorite. I mean, for the 5 carbs for 1 tablespoon, it's gonna be, you're not gonna have that much of it that it's gonna affect, you know, you being in ketosis because of that, those 5 grams. So, or maybe try the one that has the added fiber in it. Maybe that'll, you know, help me. So this here is probably the best option. This is just homemade raspberry jam that's keto friendly. So I have the recipe on my blog. Basically what you do is you just take a bunch of raspberries, you boil them down in a pot, then you add vanilla extract and stevia or like erythritol, whatever kind of sweetener you want. I like Swerve. I like the taste of Swerve the best. It has the least like kind of cooling chemical-y taste to it. So you add that, and then this actually has chia seeds in it, so it adds fiber, protein, and then it helps give it like that jelly-like texture. So yeah, so you just can make up your own batch, and then you don't really have to worry about the carbs as much. So I think that's the best option. So this is what I'll be using in my cookies today. All right, so now that all my layers have cooled, I'm gonna start assembling. So I usually like to do white in the middle. I don't know if there's really a specific order, but I'm gonna start with the red on the bottom. And what I'm gonna do is you'll take your parchment paper and kind of slide it onto a cutting board. So you have your first layer. And then I'm gonna get a tablespoon, and I'll take my raspberry jam, and you're just gonna do like sandwich layers. So I'm gonna take a spoon of that and just start like spreading it on your cookie dough or your big cookie layer. And you don't need too much, just like a couple tablespoons for each layer, because you don't need it super thick. It's just enough to kind of stick it together and give it like that little pop of raspberry flavor. So just try to spread it out as evenly as you can. Maybe I'll do one more spoon. This is probably my biggest layer here. And you're gonna have rough edges. I mean, unless you can roll it out perfectly. I mean, I certainly can't. But unless you can roll it out perfectly, you're gonna have rough edges that you'll end up chopping off. So it doesn't have to be like super even with the jam. So that's kind of to show you, that's one layer there. And then I'm going to take my next layer, which is going to be the white. Now this is where you gotta be a little careful. So then you have to flip it and put it on top. Usually toss the paper. So now you have your second layer. And then what you do is you just keep making the sandwich. So now I'm gonna do some of the jam on top of the white layer. I mean, anybody who's made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich can easily do this part. So, aside from the flipping, that's not normally how you make a sandwich. Unless it is, not me. So I'm gonna spread this out. By the way, speaking of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, you could probably use this jam to make yourself a keto peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So I do have a keto bread recipe. Eventually I'll share it, but you could use pre-made keto bread, your own recipe, and then you could use this jam, and then if you get natural peanut butter without sugar or any kind of sweetener, and that would probably work as a keto-friendly peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So, some fun ideas here. All right, so we got our jam layers. So now, I'll take my green layer, and this is gonna go on top of everything. Actually, it wasn't so bad. I mean, the first time I made these, they kind of cracked a little bit, but that's because they were pretty thin. So I think it helps if they're thicker. So you have your 3 layers, they're stacked. And then now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna melt up some Lily's chocolate chips, and we're gonna use that for the top. So for the chocolate chips, what I do is I take about a cup of Lily's dark chocolate chips. You can use, there's a ton of other brands out there. There's Chalk Zero, I really like their chips, but Lily's I happen to have at Costco in like a giant bag, so I got a bunch of those. And then what I'll do is I'll take a tablespoon of coconut oil and I'll melt it for about a minute, and you kind of take it out in 30 seconds and mix it just so that it doesn't burn. So you'll melt that all together so it's nice and smooth. Okay, so now I have my chocolate, it's melted, it's nice and smooth. So then what you're gonna do is you're going to just take your chocolate and drizzle it over the top. And that coconut oil makes it nice and smooth. It helps with melt those chips down. So then I'll take a spatula and you just kind of spread it evenly over the top. Looks so pretty. You don't have to go crazy with covering the edges because, like I said before, there's a lot of kind of rough edges. So we'll end up trimming those off later. So it makes that nice, even cookie. So you just kind of spread it out so it's evenly covered. I'm gonna see if there's a little more in there and get that on top. There we go. Alright, so it's looking good. So then what you do is you take this and I put it in the fridge for at least 2 hours, and then it'll harden up, and then we'll see what it looks like and we'll cut it up into cookie shapes. Okay, so a couple hours later, had a couple snacks, hair's up now. Got some laundry done, did some cleaning, all that fun stuff. So anyway, so now it looks like it's nice and hard. Chocolate is solid. So then what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut it into our rainbow cookies. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna shape it into like a rectangle. So you wanna cut off all those jagged edges. So I'll start with that. Now don't be upset that these are all coming off right now, all these edges. because this actually used to be my favorite part as a kid. My mom used to make rainbow cookies every Christmas, and all these little edges, we got to eat those as kids because the rest of the cookies she would hand out to like family and friends and things like that. So these extra pieces here, you get to have as a snack. So we're just gonna cut those off, even it out. This is gonna have a large extra piece because that red part is just hanging out on the end. All right, so then I'm gonna move those extra pieces out of the way. We'll put them in this Tupperware for snacking later when I watch my trash TV. Now we have our little rectangle, and then what you're gonna do next is you're gonna cut it into those smaller rectangles. So I kind of cut across, apply some pressure, and you're gonna get some nice cuts. And then what you do is you cut that into rectangles, so like this. Chocolate is kind of splitting a little bit, so if it starts splitting, just pull each rectangle away from the other ones. Alright, those are kind of split, but we'll try this one. This one might be a little better. So this is probably the nicest one. So you're gonna get your little rectangles like that. And you just kind of keep slicing the whole thing. All right, so here you have your keto Italian rainbow cookies. So you see you have your nice 3 layers there with the chocolate on top and the jam in the middle. So I hope you get a chance to try these out, and I hope you like them.